Pro Wrestling Edition of Big Dad Energy. Let's go!
I wasn't prepared for that.
I know.
All right, I'm your host Nick, and today we are going to cover old school versus new school wrestling. I have here with me today my brother-in-law, Gus, who's a content creator, got his own digital marketing company. He was a huge fan of wrestling in the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression Era, and he's also my producer. How you doing today, brother?
Yo, what's up, man? Glad to be here. Very excited on your new endeavor. Very happy that I can be part of it. So, shout out to that. Dude, honestly, I don't even know what these eras are. Attitude, Ruthless Aggression. Like, when I watched the wrestling, it was wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about it, and the last time I really saw wrestling was probably 20 years ago-ish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, after high school with my buddy. I remember RVD. I remember Dave Bautista's always been probably one of my ultimate favorites. And, of course, Latino Heat. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, yes, it's been a little while.
Yeah, no, it's funny because we now, as wrestling fans, know all these eras as the Attitude Era, the Golden Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era, the PG Era. But it's funny when you're living in it. It's just, like you said it perfectly. It's just wrestling. You don't know really what you're in when you're in it. You know what I'm saying? So, no, but that's definitely, I'm with you there. Some of my, favorites growing up was, The Rock, Stone Cold, Taz, Eddie Guerrero, Latino Heat, R.I.P. Definitely one of my favorites as well. But I feel like when we grew up, right, because you were born in the 80s, I was born at the end of the 80s, so it's like coming up like in the 90s was kind of like the transition from that golden era to what we now known as the Attitude Era. You have the transition from Hogan, Warrior, Macho Man, all the way into, Rock, Stone Cold, WCW.
So is Golden Era classified as like pre-WWE, like back when it was WCW and WWF?
It was even like before then. So that's like the Golden Era is like in the 80s. So like you have like when it's WWF, Vince is taking the company over from his dad, and he's really developing pro wrestling into what we know pro wrestling to be today. Because it was a bunch of local promotions, right? Now we would call it the independents, right? That's pretty much what it was. And then, so Vince's dad had the Northeast independent area of wrestling, the Manhattan area of wrestling, so on and so forth. So when you talk about the Golden Era, that's what you're talking about. The first Mania, Hogan,
Andre the
Giant,
Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Jake the Snake Roberts,
Sergeant Slaughter, Macho Man.
Yeah.
That was pretty good too. But yeah, so when you're talking about the Golden Era, that's what we're talking about. Nice. So, I feel like what really made it, without larger than life superstars like Hogan, Macho Man, Warrior, and then Vince to have the foresight to create the Super Bowl of wrestling, which is what WrestleMania is. Right. Getting it out of local promotions onto mainstream, right, onto TV for everyone to see across the country, really helped boost and elevate.
Bro,
So.
I remember in the early 2000s, like, me and my buddies would literally go to... it was Hooters, but actually our favorite place was Barnacle. And I remember it always happened in April was when WrestleMania was, because it was around one of my homeboys' birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And, they would show the pay-per-view there, and it would be just so electric. Everybody would be there eating wings, eating shrimp, and just, like, watching these Hell in a Cell matches and all kinds of crazy stuff happen. Yeah, man. That was Good times.
Barnacles down on Jimmy Carter.
Yep.
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 So that used to be my every pay-per-view. Now they're called PLEs, premium live events, but back then it was a pay-per-view. That was it. Me and my buddies being down there.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. It was that was during the height of really the transition from the Ruthless Aggression era, going into the PG era. Cena's the main guy. So a bunch of kids there saying how much they love Cena. Me being the Orton guy that I was. And they used to be on pay-per-views all the time, going against each other for the belts and all that stuff. Yeah. Man, that was beautiful. That's what wrestling's great, when you bring communities together and we all get to enjoy it.
Yeah. So what's the modern wrestling fan experience like now? Still a lot of the same, or has it changed a lot? Like, when you were explaining to me about how wrestling happens 4 to 5 times a week now, like, I feel like it's very oversaturated. The last thing that I've heard, that I've caught on the news, you hear there's a lot of outsiders coming in, like the Ronda Rousey that's getting it, or Logan Paul getting in on it, and like, that's just so foreign to what I'm used to when I think about wrestling. Yeah, no,
so which is completely understandable, because when we were kids, when we were growing up, we had what we were spoon-fed, right? It was WWF then, now WWE, and WCW. Mm-hmm. And then ECW, if you were lucky enough to be up that late at night watching people get thrown through flaming tables. So it's what's happening now in this era, which it could be a little bit oversaturated. Like, at least for me, I experienced the oversaturation when it went from, we had Raw and SmackDown, to we're going to start having all these like additional, like they were having like Velocity, Sunday Night Heat. They were having all these extra like little events going on. But now I don't really think it's oversaturation, just because of the day and age that we're in now, with having all these different promotions, right? So like we talked a little bit earlier about wrestling used to be regionalized, kind of like what the independents are now. But with having social media, the streaming, the access to content that we didn't used to have, you have all these characters. Like, I get if it was WWE Monday through Sunday every single day, but it's not. Mm-hmm. So you're getting different characters, you're getting different storylines, you're getting different writers, creators. It's really refreshing in a way, because pro wrestling used to be thought of as, well, it's WWF and that's it. After the end of the Monday Night Wars and WCW went out of business, it's like it's just WWF. But you have one person calling the shots, and that's Vince.
Right.
So he has a creative. Each wrestling company has their own creative, but he's the final say on it all. But now it's WWE, it's AEW, it's TNA, it's the independents like GCW that's really may not be like GCW and TNA may not be on like mainstream TV for everybody to be able to see.
Yeah.
But like TNA has their own app where you can subscribe to, and you get all their content, all their old content, all their current content. GCW, with the social media going on and YouTube and all that stuff, you may not be able to catch the whole event, but you'll catch the gist of the event. Yeah. You'll see a lot of the main moments, some of the matches, right?
Now, do they cross-pollinate?
So, not as much as they should, okay. But I think we're heading there. So, like, TNA and WWE have a partnership now, where we're getting a little bit cross-pollination, that little cross-promotion a little bit, with their characters. But besides that, like, AEW and the independents, and the independents with TNA, they have a little bit of something going on there. But WWE right now, their partnerships just with TNA, they're not really feeding into the independents as of yet, but it's getting that way because I don't know if you're aware of this or not. Vince is out of the picture now, and Triple H is running things.
Is he still married to Stephanie?
He is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and he's kind of like their chief content officer. He's the head of pretty much all their content, all their creative. But he has such an open mind that like things like New Japan Pro Wrestling are getting mentioned on TV, and you're having these mentions of other wrestlers and promotions and all this stuff. So it's not as cross-pollinated yet, but we are in such a healthy place that it's getting there.
Because the one thing that I think about, you know, back when we were watching wrestling, you kind of had to wait, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had to wait a whole week to see what was going to happen next. Where now, with social media and the internet and stuff like that, like, kind of those storylines kind of carry into or past, you know, what you watch on these streaming platforms or on TV, if you still watch TV and stuff like that. So that's kind of crazy to me.
So yeah, no, it's nuts too because you know, I got 2 kids, you got 2 kids. It's hard for us to find the time to just sit down and watch what we want to watch sometimes, right? Or catch up with what we want to catch up with. It's like last night was Friday Night SmackDown, and you know, I'm hanging out with the family. I'm not able to watch it, but I go to lay down in bed after the kids are asleep, and I'm going out for the night. I pull out my phone. I got on YouTube, and they have the gist of Friday Night SmackDown released on YouTube in clips. And it's like, so I can pretty much get caught up on what just happened without having to spend 2 hours in my night watching it live. And then it's just your point with social media, man, with the storylines and all that. If you know how to use it, it's a gold mine, because there was this big thing out. Probably some people still care about it. I got over it real quick, where they say kayfabe is dead.
Right.
Now, those of you that don't know, kayfabe is basically you're living the character, right? It's your gimmick, your storyline, everything that's going on. You're not being let in behind the curtain. Behind that, it's like, oh, I really believe that The Rock and Stone Cold hate each other,
right.
Or I really believe that the Undertaker's dead, and he's got superpowers and all this stuff, right? I really believe that stuff. And a lot of people, like, when social media started becoming this big thing, is there was a lot of, well, kayfabe's dead now, because now we have an insight onto these wrestlers' lives and who they really are. It's like it's Dwayne Johnson. It's not The Rock, right? He's got his own different persona, and it kind of. But if you think about it, use social media the right way. Wrestling fans these days are smart. They know it's storyline. They know it's scripted. And all this stuff, but if the story, so are the movies that we see, so are the TV shows that we watch. So if you really buy in to the acting and to the story that connects with you, everyone has a different story that connects with them, right? They connect certain things to other things. Like now as an adult, the whole Ray and Eddie feud, who's Dominic's dad,
right,
affects me more now. I was emotionally invested in when I was a kid, when I was younger. But now as an adult, thinking back on it, if I were to go watch it, I'd be extra emotionally invested into it because I'm a dad myself, right? And I couldn't imagine, even though that was a story, being put in that situation and how great the acting was and how great they were really just going at each other.
Yeah.
Like, if you know how to use social media correctly, if anything, it enhances it.
Now with the memes and stuff like that.
Oh,
with Maury out there.
It's amazing.
You are maybe the father.
Exactly.
You know?
No, it's amazing, man.
That's funny.
It's amazing.
And the other thing that would be pretty cool is like the backstage drama, like really being able to.
Dude, that's awesome.
To see that, that's unfold.
Awesome. That's awesome. I would have loved to have that in the days of the Miz being kicked out of the locker room and having to change in bathrooms and janitor closets because they didn't want an outsider in their locker room and all that stuff. Like, CM Punk was at AEW. There's this back behind the scenes backstage scuffle between him and some dude that nobody cares about. And it was this whole big deal about why he left AEW and came back to WWE. And AEW released footage of that. And the whole time they were trying to make it out like CM Punk was a bad guy. And you watch the footage and it's like, well, not really. He didn't really do anything wrong. Like, I don't blame him. I would have reacted the same way if someone tried to talk to me or come to me like that. Like, but like, no, I'm with you. Having all that backstage stuff, like most recently CM Punk was feuding with Drew McIntyre. They're still kind of going at it. But the way Drew pops on social and just drags this dude through the mud, it's like, amazing, man. It's just like, because now it's those times where it's like I'm laying down in bed at 11 o'clock at night and I can't watch wrestling, but I can go on Twitter or X now and scroll through and see what Drew just posted or whoever just posted, and I'm brought into the storyline, and they're not even airing or wrestling matches.
Yeah.
Right? It's awesome.
And the other thing is you get a lot of experts giving their 2 cents in, so you get to learn more about stuff that maybe you didn't even know about.
Yeah.
That's why, when it comes to other shows, for example, just a Game of Thrones show, like, I love it on the surface for what it is, but a lot of times when you do have the social media community engagement, like, there's so much more that I didn't know about, that I wasn't aware about, that I wouldn't even have thought about, where you kind of get to have that community thing, and that would have been cool to have, because back in the day it was just me and my buddies and whoever else really likes wrestling, but it was hard to really make that community unless you went to the places like Barnacles and stuff like that, and even then it was kind of awkward to talk to people, but there was a camaraderie where basically online you have your communities now where you can go in there and comment, get updates and stuff like that, so
It's
I can
awesome.
definitely see how that could be a benefit.
No, it's definitely awesome, man. And the amount of former wrestlers that have, like, quote unquote retired that are doing podcasts these days, and then they still keep up with the product and they're tweeting about it or posting on X, whatever the kids call it these days.
Right.
I'm always going to call it a tweet. I'm always going to call it Twitter.
You might offend Elon.
Elon, I'm sorry, man, but it's in my DNA. But, like, you're getting that perspective, right? Not just from the community, and not being able to just talk with someone that's in another country or on the other side of the U.S. that likes the same things you do, right? You're getting that expert feedback, right? That expert analysis, right? It's the same thing with ESPN. If you're not getting one of the personalities who was a former journalist or doing this, they have a lot of former athletes on there, right? That could give their 2 cents into whatever sport they're discussing. It's the same thing with pro wrestling, and to me, it's just elevating the product. So it's awesome. It's awesome. But it's definitely been a change. From where we're at. We're talking about social media a lot now. I could just imagine what that Stone Cold and Rock feud would have been like if social media existed during that time. Like, I don't see Steve as someone to be tweeting a whole lot. But I could definitely picture The Rock going in and tweeting on that stuff, and it could have made a huge impact on the storytelling back then, where it's like, because I see the benefit, right, of you needed to be there to see it, right, of needing the suspense of needing to wait, right, like nowadays you could turn on Netflix, Disney Plus. We were talking about Game of Thrones, right, on Max. Game of Thrones makes you wait a week,
right,
to watch an episode,
right,
and then they make you wait 2 years for the next season.
right.
It's Disney Plus with the same thing with their Star Wars and their Marvel. They're going to drop it once a week. They're going to make you wait. If there are any kids listening right now, I'm just going to tell you, man, that's what we did. We had commercials, and we had to wait a week. But that's one of the things why I love pro wrestling, is because it doesn't have an off season.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm a huge football fan. It's this huge build up for the national championship game or the Super Bowl, but then it's like January, February come and gone, and now we got to wait again until August, September for football, right? You don't get that with wrestling. So I just think, social media just elevates that. So yeah, man, it's a beautiful time to be a wrestling fan.
Nice.
Beautiful time to be a wrestling fan.
Has there been changes in match styles?
Pros and cons. Yeah, a lot, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
So sell me on it. Why, as a previous generation, a golden era fan, would I like, other than the social media aspect, which is cool, but as far as the match style and just the actually quality of the matches, sell me on that.
Well, it's different. It's the same thing with basketball, baseball, football. The kids these days are bigger, faster, stronger, more athletic, right? It's like football has evolved from run first with passing
Right.
to passing first, right, with a little bit of run, more of a spread offense, all that stuff.
And it's more entertaining.
It's more entertaining, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you had to really watch like the luchadors, like Rey Mysterio, Ultimo Dragon, Eddie Guerrero, to really get like that high flying, fast paced style of wrestling, right?
Shoot, and people used to have to go overseas to get that.
To
do that.
Yeah, going down to Mexico, going to New Japan, wherever.
Right.
It's like that's the style, right? It's people want to say all they want about Logan Paul. That dude can put on a show. If there was anyone who's not like a full time wrestler that was born to be a professional wrestler, it's him.
You think so?
Like he's a better wrestler than his brother is a boxer.
I do like his YouTube. Actually, me and my daughters watch because of his Pokemon card stuff. You know, we're Pokemon card fans. So, like, that was kind of cool. And then to discover that he's also doing the wrestling thing. And I was like, that's kind of dope. Like, I want to see Mr. Beast in the ring. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, he's one of those rare individuals that's like an outsider that comes in. But it's like, you could tell he puts in the work.
Yeah.
WWE for a while has been bringing in celebrities, right? Like, the first WrestleMania was WrestleMania 1 or WrestleMania 3 is one of the two. Mr. T, right? They were bringing Mr. T in, and he was kind of like there.
I pity the fool.
He did like a little bit, but he's like, you could tell he's just there to be Mr. T, right? And not do a whole lot. And it was the same thing with Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
They brought in Mike Tyson, and it was like him and Stone Cold are kind of going to go at it. But Mike Tyson's a special guest referee. He's not, like, performing, right?
Now, where would you put Brock Lesnar in that?
So, like, to me, Brock Lesnar, he was an amateur wrestler. He has an amateur wrestling background.
Yeah.
He's a national champion for wrestling, and he got recruited by the WWE.
So, same as, like, Kurt
wrestler.
Angle and Mark
Correct.
Henry and stuff like that.
Correct. Like, it was one of those, like, yeah, they're quote-unquote outsiders, but they have an experience. Like Mark Henry, the world's strongest man. Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, amateur wrestlers.
Olympic
wrestlers. Kurt Angle's got a gold medal with a broken freaking neck.
Yeah.
It's, you have all that. Logan Paul's a YouTuber.
Right.
But that's an athletic dude.
He is super
And you could tell he cares about the business. He's not a full-timer. He's not working 200 to 300 days a year. But when he's called upon to wrestle, he said this on his podcast and in other interviews, is that he wants to give. He's like, the people don't get to see me all the time. So when I do wrestle, I want to put on a show.
He doesn't want to leave anything in the
Yeah, he's like, I don't want to. He's like, because I have. He's like, he was talking to a couple wrestlers. He's like, you guys have to go out and wrestle the next night. I get to relax for a couple months and recuperate and heal and all that stuff. So when you talk about like the changes in match styles, it's the athleticism is just off the charts. Like if you're, I'll preface this by saying, if you're a Bret Hart guy, if you're like, I want to watch the technical wrestling, the holds, the slow methodical matches, like all that stuff.
Right.
You don't get a lot of that anymore. You get some of it. And you get it with like a twist. This is more athletic, right? Nowadays, a lot more flying around, a lot more speed, things like that. Especially from bigger guys, they're taking a lot more risks. They're really athletic, doing some things like that. But the styles definitely changed. I personally, from an outsider, like I'm just a mark here, but the thought process of putting a match together in my eyes changed. From what we see a lot of, specifically in WWE, just because you have more athleticism, so you can showcase more. You don't have to do the ground stuff, do the drop toe holds and the sleepers and the arm bars and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like all that's good. It still needs to be incorporated, right? But you're not going to get a whole match centered around that. Like back in the day, they did a 2 out of 3 falls match.
Okay.
They're gonna give that to the veteran, technically savvy guys in the ring, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Kurt Angle, guys like that, right? Because they want to make sure that you can go for that long, right? They just did a 2 out of 3 falls match on Raw the other night between Braun Breaker, who you don't know, but he's the Steiner's, he's Scott Steiner's nephew, Rick Steiner's son, if I'm remembering the lineage there correctly.
Interesting.
But he's a Steiner, and then so you can imagine, big Papa Pump, like big, you swole dude. But I've never seen anybody run so fast at his size. That dude can fly, and he with Sami Zayn, who Sami Zayn's a little more of a. He can wrestle. He has the technical skills, and he's a great performer in the ring. But with the match styles changing, it's not as technical. It's a little bit more of running around and things like that. So they're doing a 2 out of 3 falls match. The majority of the match took place outside of the ring with Sammy being thrown through a barricade by Braun, and you're not getting we're gonna mat wrestle or we're gonna stay in the ring. They're going out a lot more. Yeah, brawling. It's a fight. It's so yeah. The styles have definitely changed, and I think that's because the methodology of how to put a match together changed a little bit. You still have the basics that you're gonna go by, but I think the overall product you're seeing is a lot different, just based on everyone's just bigger, stronger, faster. So, yeah, it's an interesting ride to be on. The wrestling fan experience today, we have a lot more access now than we used to.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be a pro wrestler when I was a kid. I wanted to grow up. That's what I wanted to do. I probably could have taken some steps to get there. I chose not to. Chose to go a different path, but a kid growing up now, I feel like that's a lot more obtainable because it's out there and you know the different avenues and this, that, and the independents are more spoken of, and you know where they're located, where they are, how to get into the wrestling schools, how to dive in, all that stuff. So I just think the wrestling fan experience with the accessibility, the social media, and just how much it's blossoming now, and the amount of different events that they're doing. So you're not just going to a wrestling show just to watch a wrestling show. Like they have, if it's WrestleMania, they have if I'm probably butchering what it's called, but I think it's like WrestleMania World or something like that, where it's like the build up for WrestleMania. It's like a whole week where you go down and they have events for kids and families. They have a shop. There's a meet and greet with the wrestlers that you can pay for, and all this different things. And then the live events, they probably did it then at the live events, but now it's with social media, you can see it. So when you were a kid going to a live event or Raw or SmackDown or a pay-per-view, whatever it was, you probably wouldn't find out that the wrestlers come out and hang out with the crowd a little bit unless you were there at the event. Nowadays, that's just being blasted on social media and being promoted by the company of the wrestler's engagement with the fan, with the audience, with the kids, things like that. So, in my opinion, I think we're in the best. A lot of people say that we're in the Attitude Era 2.0, just by the hype of wrestling right now. I think it's completely different, and I'm an Attitude Era baby, but I feel like it's on a whole nother level right now.
Apparently, I'm an Attitude Era baby too.
Yeah, with the exposure and everything like that, man, it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. I appreciate you coming on today, man. Sharing this conversation with me, hearing about your time. If you want to shed a little bit more light on that, you can. But just hearing about who you were a fan of, what you were a fan of when it was going on. It's anytime we could chop. I could chop wrestling with anybody. It's definitely a good time.
Well, and the reason why I was such a huge fan of Eddie Guerrero is because he was from my hometown. He was the hometown hero. He went to the same high school as my dad. And my dad was a little bit older than him, so he knew people that kind of knew him. He didn't know him personally or whatever. But the lowrider thing spoke to me also. Mm-hmm. And it was just, once he passed away, it was so hard to just continue. Like, no one was ever gonna fill that spot, you know. So I just kind of let it go with him.
Yeah, it was. You know, you bring that up. It was. I still remember where I was and what was happening. Like, I found out Eddie passed away from a news ticker at the bottom of the, you know, like the little ticker at the bottom of the news or whatever.
Yeah.
My mom was watching something and it said breaking WWE superstar Eddie Guerrero was found in his hotel room, all that stuff. It was tough, man. That was, I had just, it's especially knowing his story and how much he overcame and got through to be a better husband, a better father, a better friend, a better person, and get healthy. Just to find out that, you know, the good ones really do die young. So it's, it was definitely tough, man. But no, it's just, it's a beautiful time, man. Anytime you want to hop back into wrestling, we'll take you.
Let's do it, man. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime, man.
Awesome.
I appreciate you hopping on, man. Like I said, we could chop it up whenever.
Yeah.
And then, you know, those of you listening, thank you for tuning in. Go ahead, and if you have any comments, questions, anything you want me to discuss on a future episode, so on and so forth, drop that in the comments. Let me know. You know, definitely do my best to accommodate y'all, but appreciate y'all hanging out with me. That's my brother-in-law, Gus.
Boom.
I'm your host, Nick, and this has been the Pro Wrestling edition of the Big Dad Energy Podcast.